Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. Well, I'm at my neighbor Wes's house, and Wes and I share machinery. We own a zero turn together, and I let him use my tractor all the time, and he lets me use his trailer. And he's getting ready to use a grapple on some ground he bought for hunting. And he's never used a grapple. Wes has been around tractors a lot, so I'm going to train him a little bit today on how to use a grapple. And I'm going to video that in case you're a new grapple owner and you want some tips on how to use it and how they work. But before that today, I'm going to talk about what to look for if you're shopping for a grapple. Now, I'm going to put a plug in. We sell grapples on our website. Love to have you go there. I represent different manufacturers that make grapples. Now, the grapples I sell will not be the cheapest. If you're looking for the cheapest price, there's another grapple you'll want to get. But you kind of get what you pay for with grapples. Mine are designed to offer a lifetime of use, and they're all USA built. And the one we're talking about today is the Stinger clam grapple, a CCG, compact clam grapple. But the principles I tell you about today apply to any grapple. So if you're shopping for a grapple, either on my website or from your local dealer, there's a few things to look at. First off, there's really two styles of grapple. There's the old rake style grapple. It's just a flat platform that you drive under the brush, and then there's a hydraulically activated grapple that comes down to squeeze it together, and then you carry it to the burn pile. And I sold those for the better part of the early part of my career in the farm equipment business and thought they were the best thing you could ever get. And they're what I was used to because I grew up with a similar situation. I grew up on an apple orchard. We didn't have a hydraulically activated grapple, but we had what we called a bull rake. And when we pruned our apple trees, and we would pile the brush in the middle of the row, and this rake just ran around on the ground and on the front end loader, and Dad would come along and push the brush on the rake until he got a full load, and then pick it up and take it to a burn pile. Now, we didn't have anything to pull down on top of it, so a lot of brush came off to the sides and really rolled underneath. And that's a disadvantage of a grapple rake style grapple, is you've got to get the brush on top of it. And if you don't get the brush on top of it, if it goes underneath where the teeth are, it can roll underneath and you can string it. And that was my job and my mom's job, to follow Dad on the tractor and get the stuff he'd strung and move it to the next row, which is why I probably have back problems today. So that's the kind of grapple I sold the bulk of my career and really believed in until I got a clam grapple. And the clam grapple is the kind that clamps down like this. And basically what you do with a clam grapple is you push the brush along the ground and you're pushing it with your teeth down low. And so you're not having to move it up on top of anything, you're just pushing it. So it kind of wads up the brush in a big clump. And so when you get it where you want it, what I do is tilt the grapple forward and then squeeze down on the load and then pick it up, and you can take it wherever you want to. I think it does a better job than the old rake style grapples of removing brush without stringing it everywhere, because you're not trying to get it on top of anything. Now, if you own the other style, that's fine. They both work, and they both are a whole lot better than doing it the old-fashioned way by hand. But that's the difference in the two grapples. So the first thing you got to decide is, what style of grapple do I want? And I just sell the clam grapples. I believe in them enough. I have access to sell either one. I just sell the clam grapples because I like them better. The next thing you need to think about is, how wide do I want the grapple? And I really think that a lot of people agonize over how wide to get, and they don't really need to, because most of the time when you're pushing brush, you'll have a pile that's kind of, like this, and you're just trying to grab that. And so if you've got a branch that sticks out in either direction, a lot of times it goes right through the middle. And if you're picking up, tall limbs, whatever is in the middle that you grab down on, the sides are going to go where the middle goes. And so I don't worry as much about width as I do if I'm buying a loader bucket. A loader bucket you want wider than your front tires, but a grapple, not necessarily so. In this particular grapple I've got is only 56 inches wide, and the front tires are wider than that, and I don't even worry about it, because whatever we're pushing in the big pile is going to grab and pick up and move wherever. What I am concerned about, and this is really important, if you've got a smaller tractor, is that your grapple doesn't take up more than 50% of your tractor's loader lift capacity. And that's really important. So if you've got a tractor that picks up 1,000 pounds and you've got a 700-pound grapple, you're not going to have any left over to pick up if you want to pick up a log or something heavier. So I'm more worried about how much the grapple itself weighs than I am about the width. And so go to tractordata.com if you don't know your tractor's lift capacity and see what it is, and make sure that that grapple weighs less than half of that. Having said that, with a grapple, you're not usually lifting much weight because you're picking up brush, unless you're picking up logs, and so the brush doesn't weigh much, and you can always pick up a smaller amount, and you're not picking it up the full height that the loader bucket goes most of the time. So kind of take that with a grain of salt, but don't get too light that you're going to tear it up, or too heavy a grapple that you have no lift capacity left over. And the other thing I like to look at is if you're trying to get the maximum brush, is how wide the opening is. And this Stinger compact clam grapple is about average for the business, which is enough for me. But if you want to get the maximum amount of brush every time, like an orchard operation or something like that, get as wide a grapple opening as you can. And we sell some grapples on the website that open quite a bit wider than this one. And if you're wanting to get the maximum amount of brush, that's what you do. Now, one thing I would highly recommend that you get when you're getting a grapple is a dual grapple clamp design. Some of the cheaper grapples have a single clamp that runs across the width of the grapple, and those are great for brush, but when you're trying to move a log and the log is bigger on one end than it is on the other, that single clamp will try to bend itself as it's clamping down on the uneven log. With the dual grapple clamp design, one end will go around the big end and the other will come down to the small end, and you'll get a sure grip on that uneven log. And that's all I sell, and I highly recommend that's what you get. The next thing you need to think about, I like to have the cylinders in the back of the grapple instead of up on top. I don't know as that really matters that much. You're not going to get too much damage up top because your grapple is between the load and the cylinder, but I like them back here in the back where they're really protected. And this grapple's got holes in the middle of it. I like that because you can kind of see your load, especially when you're starting out with a grapple. Being able to see what you're getting into is really nice. But that's the main things I look at when I'm selecting a grapple, regardless of what brand or anything else you get. Now, you got to get a hydraulic flow to the grapple, and there's two ways of doing that. You can do a third function valve, which means you tap into the tractor's hydraulic system. And the advantage of that is you can run both the clamping down of the grapple and the tilt and curl at the same time. On my website, I sell an extra valve kit, it's called. It's a diverter valve, where you can divert the flow of oil from your tilt and curl, for example, to your front hydraulics to clamp down. So you can either tilt and curl, or you can run your grapples up and down. And the advantage of the extra valve kit, if they were the same price and the same amount of work to install either one, you'd go with a third function kit every time. But to me, the third function kit is more involved. You got to tap into the tractor's hydraulic system and run that all, but you can do both functions at once. But I never do that, so I've got this extra valve kit, which I installed myself. And if you want to check that out, I'll put a link up here to look at it on my website. I think it's up here. But you can install that yourself and get hydraulics to the front of the tractor, but you have to have hydraulic flow. And if you've got remotes, in other words, remote plug-ins on the back of the tractor, you can plug into those and run hoses up to the front and get flow that way. That's perfectly acceptable way of running a grapple. But now we're going to train Wes on how to use this one and talk about some other things related to grapples. So let's get started. Well, this is Wes, my neighbor, and normally I recommend not letting your neighbors use your equipment, but Wes takes better care of my stuff than I do. So he's welcome anytime. Wes, I'm going to show you how to use we've got the diverter valve right here, and I'm going to show you how it works. And the button is right here. There's just a little button that's zip tied on the joystick. Sure. Push the button in, and you're going to make your grapples go up and down by moving your lever from side to side.
Okay.
And when you let go of it, you go back to tilt and curl. But so you can hook it up either way, where if you tap into your raise and lower circuit, when you push the button, the grapple, if you're plumbed into a grapple, then you pull back on your lever, the grapple is going to go back toward you, and you release it, and then you can do your raise and lower, and you push it in again and move your lever forward. That's not the way this is hooked up.
Okay.
This is hooked up the exact opposite way, where you're using your tilt and curl. I hope this makes sense. But there's two ways you can hook in. You're either hooking in to your tilt and curl cylinder or your raise and lower cylinder. Now, if all you use is a grapple, then it makes sense to tap into your raise and lower system, because your thought process is push the button in, move forward, the grapples come down, pull back, they come up. But we've got a tree puller here, and I use a tree shear from time to time, and that's why I've got it in the tilt and curl cylinder, because with the tilt and curl and the tree puller, when you push the button in and move this to that side, the teeth come together, and when you push it and move it to the other side, they come apart, and that's instinctively because you're doing like this.
Mm-hmm.
Does that all make sense?
That makes sense, yeah, that way clamp.
So we've really got it set up for a tree shear or a tree puller, but you're also going to be using a grapple. So it's not intuitive, but I'm going to tell you, whatever you have it set up is what you get used to.
Correct.
And you're going to be fine. So basically all you're going to do is start the tractor up. When you want the grapples to go up and down, you're going to push this button and then go from side to side, and that's going to change the flow of oil from the tilt and curl to the grapples. And I'm going to back up here to film it, and we'll let you play with it.
Figure it out.
Yep. Well, it's obvious Wes has run a tractor a few times, because he did pretty good. You saw any questions about anything?
No, it just take a little getting used to, but I think after running it 5 or 10 minutes, it'd be automatic, just like learning the backhoe or whatever, you know.
I find myself, if I'm not conscious about keeping my thumb on that button, then the pressure will gradually release, and pretty soon I'm tilting and curl when I'm wanting to use my grapples. But you'll get the hang of that too. Yeah. But you know, if you've run a tractor quite a bit, you understand hydraulics, and you know what's going on up there. But we'll complete this video. Wes has taken this tractor for the weekend to his new hunting ground, and he's going to use it, and they're going to video it, and we'll come back next week and do another video and talk about how it all went and what you learned, and any tips you have for everybody.
You bet.
All righty.
Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you watching my videos. I would be honored if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can do that by clicking the mic face icon, and make sure you check the bell so you get notified when I post future videos. Here's a link to my website and the Tractor Fun Store with cool things for sale for the tractor owner. It helps support my channel, and here's another couple of videos you might want to watch. Thanks for watching.